Hello, USA. Welcome to Free or D. That's Live Free or Die. And I'm your host, Sean, avenging America, one podcast at a time. Thanks for joining. I'm going to be clear as day. Joyless Reid is a racist. She is by far one of my least favorite people on television. This isn't because I disagree with her ideology. I have many friends and family that are not conservative. No, it's because she is an anti-white racist. I'm going to play a clip for you. It's a short snippet of Reid's show where she's talking about a spike in hate crimes against Asian Americans. Let's have a look.
Wave of anti-Asian violence is surging across this country, from New York City, where a 61-year-old man was slashed across the face, to San Francisco, where an 84-year-old man died of injuries after getting slammed to the ground by a man who charged into him at full speed. The incidents have reached a crisis point, with Asian Americans now saying they're afraid to leave their homes or send their children back to school.
I called for help, but nobody came for help.
They started calling me Ching, Chinese virus, just all sorts of nasty stuff. They eventually struck me on my face. I fell down to the ground.
It's really been terrifying for our community because we are hit by the pandemic of this horrible pandemic, and also the racism that our community is encountering. It's been unbearable, and it's been really tough.
The National Coalition Stop AAPI Hate has documented at least 2,800 incidents of anti-Asian racism and violence in the U.S. since the pandemic began, with the previous president repeatedly using Asian slurs to refer to COVID-19. Joining me now is Michelle Kim, co-founder and CEO of Awaken. Michelle, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. It's because it feels like a lot of this is concentrated around the pandemic and the previous president's characterization of it.
I think, a lot of people are attributing the violence, the increase in violence, to the rhetoric that President Trump, or ex-President Trump, spewed over and over, calling COVID-19 a China virus, Kung Fu virus. And while that rhetoric has definitely amplified and normalized anti-Asian violence, I think it's really important for us to remember that this violence is not new. It has been in existence since 1800s. Right? When we look at the history of this country.
Now, Reid discusses 3 attacks here. 3, not 30, not 300, 3. At Free or D, we don't support violence of any kind whatsoever. So let's get that out front. However, you will notice if you watch the whole clip, she and her guest, and many others in the media, are attributing this spike, if there is one, in violence against Asians to who? You guessed it, Donald Trump. Why? Because Trump fueled racism by calling the coronavirus the China virus. The guest also makes the claim that Trump called it the Kung Flu. That is a lie. That never happened. But if Trump is to blame for motivating this, who are the culprits? Right? Who are the attackers? Given the connection to the supposed white supremacist Donald Trump, one would think it must be white people. As Reid speaks and her guest speaks, you envision that they're talking about MAGA hat-wearing white supremacists, right? Wrong. Noel Quintina, the man whose face was slashed, he was in Brooklyn, and he was on his way to Harlem. Does that sound like MAGA country to you? No, I didn't think so. Now, if you think the city isn't, the name of the city, or sorry, what area of New York it isn't enough to convince you that these weren't white supremacists, allow me to read you a snippet from people.com describing the suspects. Quote, "The NYPD is still looking for the alleged suspect in the case. In a statement to People, the NYPD says the individual is described as a male, black, 20 to 30 years old with black hair, afro. He was last seen wearing a black North Face jacket, red hoodie, blue jeans, red bandana, light-colored sneakers, and a brown Louis Vuitton face mask. End of quote. That's right. The suspect is a young black male, not an older white supremacist toting Trump flag. Do you think there's a reason why Reid and most major news outlets are leaving out the description of the suspect? Do you think it's because it doesn't fit the narrative that white supremacists are lurking around every corner? Now, Reid's next example is an 84-year-old male. He was shoved to the ground, he sustained a head injury, and tragically lost his life. Because it was caught on camera, it didn't take the San Francisco police long to capture the suspects. And again, San Francisco, not exactly MAGA country, but it didn't take the police long to capture the suspects. There were two of them, a male and a female. The male, Antoine Watson, and the female, Malaysia Gu. As you can see, there's an article that reads, "Who is Antoine Watson? San Francisco teen who killed 84-year-old man by shoving him to the pavement pleads not guilty." Watson allegedly carried out the deadly attack on senior citizen Vika Ratanpikidi, I'm sure I totally butchered that poor guy's name, on January 28th and was caught on CCTV footage. Now, again, the attack is perpetrated by a young black male. And by the name Malaysia Gu, I don't think you would be considered prejudiced or racist if you assumed she is likely of Asian descent. Again, facts the media doesn't want to tell you. Why? Because if we told the truth, if we told the people that these attacks, hate crimes or not, were perpetrated by non-whites, that wouldn't support the bogus narrative that white supremacists are hitting the streets, assaulting Asian Americans in the name of Donald Trump. Finally, we get to Denny Kim. He's an Air Force veteran. We should all thank him for his service. He was attacked. In this case, there is no question that it's a hate crime. You know, the poor guy is getting beat, and they're calling him, some rather disgusting slurs. Would you like to hear a description of the two attackers, according to WRCB-TV? Quote, "The two suspects described by police as Hispanic males in their 30s have not been found. One was described as being about 5'7", 170 pounds, with a bald head, brown eyes, wearing a long-sleeve gray shirt. The other was described as being about 5'6", 140 pounds, and wearing a white hoodie." That's right, Hispanic males. Not white supremacists, not to mention this is Los Angeles, not exactly known for its love of all things Donald Trump. Now, you're probably thinking, how did you know this would be the case? How did you know, as she was going through those stories, that each and every one of the attackers was going to be non-white? Well, it was easy. She never told you the race of the attacker, just the victim. You see, if the victim is white, it's just not even a story. If the victim is non-white, it's a story, but we only tell you the race of the attacker when the attacker is white. You see, Joy Reid is a loser. She would never dare give this information out on her show. Why? It doesn't support her bogus narrative. It doesn't support her bogus narrative that the U.S. is being terrorized by white supremacists. Why would Joy Reid present stories in a way that make it seem like whites are the problem? I don't know for sure, but my guess is she's just a racist. She uses these poor victims as props for her ridiculous quest to prove America is a racist country, steaming with white supremacists and sympathizers of the Confederacy and the Klan, but never point out the attackers aren't even white.